Hi, Story Gordon here. How's it going? Me too. It's going great. Today I want to talk about signature stories. Many serious speakers have one story meeting planners ask them to include in almost every program. This is mine. I've told this story at least several hundred times, and never the same way each time. It's a story that has a common theme: first love. So that's what I call it. Here's the story. The first time I faced death was in the 8th grade, 1951. Her name was Karen. I sat next to her in every class. Teachers seated us alphabetically. I was in love, and I was afraid to tell her, because if I did and she rejected me, I knew I was going to die. I was 13. It's too young to die. So I didn't tell her, except the pain built and built and built until I knew I was going to die anyway. What do? I went to my best friend, Billy Joe. Joe, I said, here's my problem. Joe couldn't help. He's 13. He didn't know either. But he had an older brother, Henry Lee, who was a junior. And Henry had all kinds of girlfriends. He was a big name jock on the football, basketball, baseball teams, track star. He even had his own airplane. So we went to Henry and said, Hank, here's my problem. He said, the solution is simple. What you need is a line. Lay a line on her and she'll be yours. I said, well, what's a line? He said, a line is that one statement that you make about how you can't live without her because she can make your life complete. I said, man, Hank, that sounds great. Give me a line. He said, no, it's got to be your line. Because if it's someone else's, she'll sense it, reject you, and then you'll die. So I went home and started working on a line. Karen, you're great. Karen, you're terrific. Karen, you're wonderful. Karen, you're the best girl, the greatest girl in all of the county, in the whole country, in the planet. Here it is. Karen, there's nobody as wonderful as you in the cosmos. That was my line. Monday, I came to class. I'm sitting at my desk, ready to deliver my line. Here comes Karen, heads to the pencil sharpener, sharpens at least 100 pencils, comes back, sits down. I turn to her and say, Karen. She says, yes, Gordon. And I forgot my line. I said, I liked you a lot. She jabbed me with a pencil. Ah! And I grabbed my leg and took a look. I was bleeding. The teacher said, what's wrong, Gordon? I wasn't going to rat out Karen, so I said, cramp, I've got a cramp. The teacher says, go on out in the hall and walk it off. I went out in the hall. The boys' room was right across the hall. Into the boys' room I ran, checked my hand, blood. Oh, I'm bleeding. I'm going to die. Dropped my pants, grabbed a towel. Maybe a pressure will stop the bleeding. And I looked and it had stopped. What I didn't know was that was a puncture wound, which bleeds some and then seal up. So the bleeding stopped. I cleaned up, get my pants back on, go back into the classroom and sit down. But don't look at Karen. If you look and she rejects you, you're going to die. And I didn't want to die. And then I heard it. Psst, psst, Gordon, it's Karen. Don't look, you'll die. Psst, psst, Gordon, I didn't mean to jab you. I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do to make it up to you? Yes. Would you go to the dance with me? Of course. I was hoping you'd ask. Listen to this. She was hoping I would ask, Karen likes me. I'm not going to die. It's our first dance. We're in the 8th grade, and the 8th graders are allowed to go to the high school dance, the homecoming dance. So that night I went to her house, got her, walked the 3 blocks to school. She took her little Kodak Brownie camera, took pictures of all of her friends at their first dance in their fancy dresses, and me in my first jacket and tie. On the way home, we stopped under a streetlight. I looked at her. She looked at me. We kissed. I'd never been kissed before. And I dropped her camera, which broke into a million pieces, the film spraying out all over under the streetlight, running all the negatives from her first dance. She went running home crying. I stood there in shock and died. Not physically, emotionally. Karen was lost. The next day when I told my buddies, Joe said, Gordon, we weren't meant for girls anyway. So the bunch of us, my gang, Joe and 3 or 4 others, became the ROAC, the Royal Order of Arthurian Knights, living as knights did on our quest for the Holy Grail. But that's another story. This is Story Gordon saying, thanks for stopping by. If you like that story or other things, I've got quite a few clips here on my YouTube channel. If you subscribe, you'll get notices when I put something new up. Tell your friends, I'm loving this, and I hope you come back.